What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about ChainLink today, L-I-N-K. Hit that like button, you guys. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let's get into it, okay? It is the 17th of August today. We just closed out the 16th. 23 hours left in the day here, sitting at about 22.6 cents. The reason I'm making this video is because I know we had a little bit of a pump up yesterday, 4% up, which is nice. I'm making this video because I don't want to see people FOMO. I don't want to see people get trapped, and I want you to be aware even more so of the drop that's about to come. Okay, we have a very classic pattern forming right here. You probably can't tell on the daily time frame, but if we take a look at this on the 1 hour time frame, even the 4 hour time frame, I bet it's a little bit more obvious. Probably on the 4 hour. Let's do that, yeah. It's a little bit more obvious. Any takers as to what pattern this might be? It's a perfect head and shoulders pattern. Now, does that mean that it has to work out? No, but we've seen these patterns take place before, take shape before, right? You had your left shoulder here, your head right there, and you had your right shoulder over here, and drop you did. How much, or what was the measure move in correspondence to this drop? High to low here, you broke out essentially right here, you missed your measure move. Now, typically, not financial advice, not a financial advisor, typically bearish patterns in bullish trends, they don't perform as well. And you are definitely in a bullish trend. Head and shoulders patterns always form at the top of a move. They don't form at the bottom of a move, right? Inverse head and shoulders form at the bottoms. Head and shoulders form at the tops. But this one, forming at the top, it's in the middle clearly of a bullish trend. You have higher lows, higher highs, that whole thing. So it does have the tendency to perform less well, like less effectively. Right, you had a head and shoulders pattern here, right here. You had a left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and again, I would think just by looking at it, roughly eyeballing it here, that measure move, I didn't even draw the full measure move, but you clearly did not hit that measure move there. You broke out like right down here. You clearly didn't hit that measure move either. So head and shoulders patterns on ChainLink are common enough. They do work out, it seems, but they don't meet their measure move, or at least the last two have not. Will this one see its measure move? Maybe. And we can go over that now, what that would be. The volume profile isn't completely appropriate for this thing, but I've seen head and shoulders work out even without the volume profile being on point. If we're just eyeballing it here, I think the neckline would break somewhere around here. I'm going up a little bit above to make it conservative, but that measure move would take us, we're at $22.60 right now, $22.60. That measure move would take us down to about $18.32. If we take a low to a high here, I mean, that puts us right at our golden ratio. It's very possible that this measure move works out. If we put a line right there at this measure move, and again, we're just eyeballing it roughly. Take that there. Look at that. We zoom out a little bit on the 4 hour time frame. I mean, that wouldn't be too crazy. That wouldn't be absurd at all. We could find a higher low right here, right? Right there in that zone, if I can get it. Sometime on, I mean, that would imply that we move down over the next week. Maybe we do. Maybe we do. But that would kind of go against what I think is going to happen. I don't know. Maybe. We moved up this much before, and we did consolidate for about a week or two. Moved up here, from there, that was July 21st to August 2nd. So a little bit under 2 weeks, right? Or would that be about a little bit over 2 weeks even? 21st. to August 2nd. July has 31 days. So that'd be 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so a little bit under 2 weeks there. August 13th, that's whenever we topped off. 2 weeks later would be August 20th. I mean, hey, man, maybe we do consolidate most this week. Maybe it's Wednesday or Thursday, and then we start to move up. I don't know. I'm not saying that we go down here. I'm just trying to make sense out of it, right? We've got a clear uptrend here, higher highs, higher lows, and typically also with these diagonal lines, it's once you get right above them that you find resistance, not right at them, right? So it makes sense you found resistance there. Perfect selling area. How many times have we pointed out these diagonal lines of deceit and despair and lies, and how often they actually provide resistance just above the diagonal line or support just below the diagonal line, right? Typically that's the case. It's very possible that we go a little bit lower. It's possible even that we hold $20, but I'm painting out a picture here in this kind of trend as to where we could go. And it makes sense for multiple reasons, right? First off, that trend, hold on. I don't know if you could hear that, if it sounded like an ice cream truck going by, but that was my laundry machine. It was just making some loud noises there. Hold on, let me get this from a low to a high. Low to a high there. That's also our 382 area on the overall fib. which is a very common area to find support at. And then from the low to the high here, that's also your golden ratio area. You've got a lot of significance. Measure move, 382, golden ratio, very common areas to find support at, right? And trend line, right? It all makes sense. It all makes a lot of sense. Do we have to go down there just because it makes sense? No. We could very well find support at about $20.70, $20.39, or sorry, yeah, 20.70 to 20.40, somewhere in there at the 236 here at the 382. There is prior resistance right at that area. We could find support right there. Have a failed measure move, a successful pattern, but the measure move is just not met, and then we continue to grow. That definitely can take place. Let's look at the 1 hour time frame. We'll zoom out. We'll look at our indicators. I just wanted to kind of paint a picture as to what I'm expecting and why I'm expecting it, where I'm expecting it, okay? And even when. 1 hour time frame, rejecting the overbought zone on the RSI. You can see you've had some very strong moves. Look at these readings here as you're moving up. Look at the strong readings you're getting. Look at the weak readings you're getting here. They're not as weak. They're not as strong to the downside. When you're moving down, look, it's complete opposite, right? Finding resistance at the overbought zone. Getting deep into the oversold zone, right? Here, getting deep into the overbought zone, finding resistance or support, in this case, at the oversold zone. Things are taking on a different shape now, aren't they? You're getting a little bit more into the oversold zone, a little bit more. Still not completely bearish. You're getting a little bit less into the overbought zone, and you're starting to turn the tide with a higher low and a higher high, or lower highs, lower lows. With this head and shoulders bearish pattern forming, I can't help but think and believe that we are about to see this thing come down. Weekend volatility, Saturday moved up, Sunday moves down. Over the week, will probably move down as well. That's my expectation. Looking at these indicators, the RSI, bullish for now, but you just came out of the overbought zone, come down. Even if you are bullish, I would expect at least some kind of higher low, which might take you down here. So something like that, at least momentarily bearish today for the first half of the day or so. That should take you like 6 to 12 hours, okay? If not more. Maybe you go lower, maybe you break this trend completely and get into the oversold zone. Stochastics coming out of the overbought zone as well. Bearish. So two things agreeing with momentary bearishness at the very least on the 1 hour time frame, momentary at the very least. MACD just crossed above the zero, which is nice, but on the 1 hour time frame, I'm not going to give too much weight to that. We're moving sideways, who cares? 4 hour time frame here. Now the MACD is a little bit more significant here on the 4 hour. Still not as significant, but here you're crossing below the zero slash at a place where it might make sense to bounce. Now, with this bearish momentum that's built here, I would expect at least another drive to build, even if it's a lower low, or a higher low, sorry, even if it's like that, even if we get another drive, I would expect some drive of bearish divergence or convergence to build on the MACD still, personally. That would be my expectation. We don't have to do it just because I'm expecting that, but that's my expectation. Looking at the stochastics, if this 4 hour, and I mean, hell man, the last 4 hour did close red, that's a kind of bearish look right there. We rejected the overbought zone with that last 4 hour close. If we continue to move down, if this 4 hour candle in the next 3 hours, if it closes red, we're rejecting the overbought zone on the stochastics. That's bearish, right? Getting overbought, you rejected the oversold zone, but if we're rejecting the overbought zone now after getting oversold, bearish. Things are turning the tide a little bit, right? Aren't they? Also on the 4 hour RSI, we've got a downtrend. You can clearly see, right? Lower lows, lower highs, nice little channel. We're right at the top of this channel. Come down. Easy peasy. And to come down, you know, coming down, even at the rate that we've been going down, let's just draw that real quick, okay? Let's just do it like this. I'll just freeform. High to low there, high to low there. If we take that same kind of velocity of these moves here, which I would assume we do, look at that. It's a very fine range. It'd be Tuesday. Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, that we find the low in the RSI and we're in the oversold. And I'm not saying that we'll move down this low. Maybe we do. Maybe we move lower. Maybe we move less low. But Tuesday's when we find the low in the RSI. Now, just because we find the low doesn't mean that's the low in the price, but it could be. It could be. You know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sometime next week makes sense. So we'll be moving down between now and then. That's my expectation at the moment. Everything agreeing with the original thought that we had in the beginning, which is that, hey, we've got a bearish pattern here, we're likely going to come down. You've got bearish divergence on your daily RSI, right? Finding resistance in the overbought zone, not a good look, right? Double topping right there. That doesn't mean that you have to go to zero. It doesn't mean that we're plummeting to our deaths, but hey, overall, you got some higher lows here. You can afford to take some off the top before running and making another attempt into the overbought zone, right? Doesn't mean that you're bearish on the daily. All the short-term stuff is bearish. But long-term, you're actually set up for some very bullish stuff. Here's where things get fun, right? Whenever we look at the long-term stuff, sure, we're coming down. But coming down to do what? Probably, likely, form a higher low. Higher low equals higher high. So inevitably, we will be, and going into the end of the month and into September, we should be seeing new relative highs. You look at the weekly time frame. Actually, I want to look at the other indicators too, because I don't think we looked at all of them. Stochastics are coming out of the overbought zone. You know, probably bearish. I would expect that you come down at least to the 50, if not lower. So that's days of bearishness there. The MACD, I don't know. The MACD, I would almost assume, would go a little bit higher before going lower, but 2 to 1. I'm sticking to the downside. Weekly time frame here. The weekly time frame has a little bit of a double top in the stochastics. You've built some bullish momentum here on your MACD, but we have 22 hours, 54 minutes left in this day. If this day is bearish like I think it is, perhaps we aren't building bullish momentum by the end of it. Perhaps it's a red week. We're only up 2.3% right now. So if this day closes a little bit, 2%, 3% to the downside, 4% to the downside, that should decay this growth in the MACD, and that actually might cause for us to consolidate for a week or two. Maybe not even a full week, but some kind of short duration of time. Overall, looking at the weekly time frame, though, the RSI is in a bullish posturing. The stochastics are kind of in a bullish posturing right now, and the MACD is looking to cross above the 0, which means the weeks to come, the months to come, are going to be very bullish. Okay, you're looking like you want to cross the barrier here from a high to a low. You want to cross above your golden ratio. You already are crossing above your golden ratio. Nice. And whenever we see the second attempt, I guess this is the third attempt actually. 1, 2, 3. Whenever we get this, we would expect to continue to grow, right? On a daily basis, day to day, maybe you come down a little bit, but then week to week, you should be growing to your next target area, which will be anything from about $32 to $40. You're at $22.50 now. If you're not here by the end of September, it's probably only because you're higher, right? Not because you're lower. And then I would also expect that if this move continues into October, that we very well could see new all-time highs. By the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if ChainLink was at or above its all-time high area. And maybe it's earlier than that. Maybe it's sooner than that. But, time will tell. We'll see how it goes. Ultimately, I expect by the end of the cycle, we're at $22.60 now. I would expect that by the end of the cycle, ChainLink can see prices at like $220 at a minimum, if not maybe $531. Can it get all the way up to $1,000? That'd be something, wouldn't it? 200 is a 10x times 5 would be a 50x. Let's see. I like the 1,000 just because it's at psychological resistance at 1,000, and it's the 2272 as well. Where are you, ChainLink? About 15 billion, is that right? Let me refresh this because I don't think I refreshed it. It's probably a little bit different. I could have just looked at the price and compared it, really. Okay, so 15 billion, 15.3 billion. Let's pull up calculator.com. Calculator. Actually, Google Calculator. Calculator.com is out of style ever since Google Calculator came about. We're doing 15.3 billion. So 15.3 times whatever the growth would be between its current price all the way up to $1,000. 46. Let's call it a 46.6x. That'd give you a $712 billion market cap by the end of the cycle. I don't think that's impossible. I know it sounds crazy. I know it does, but man, I think this is going to be that cycle where we see insane valuations for various amounts of cryptos. And the only ones that are going to get it are the ones that have been around for multiple cycles. The only ones that are going to see these multi-$100 billion market caps are the ones that have been around for multiple cycles. Does that mean it gets there? That's about a 46x from here. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it does a 50x, 45x, maybe not. I would at least expect 220 though by the end of the cycle, absolutely. So cycle ending targets 220 to 1,000. It's a big range, but I mean it. I wouldn't bet against 1,000, but I also wouldn't bet on it. I would bet on something higher than 220. I feel safe at that 408, 531 area, but I got nothing else to say, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. Again, the main takeaway is that I think we're about to see some volatility to the downside. Take care. Bye-bye.